Hello and welcome! Rae'chel here, and today I'm going to show you how to upgrade these modular wilderness tiles to make a diverse forest. And when I say diverse, I don't just mean trees and plants, I mean the whole landscape. We're also talking
hills and cliffs and stumps. Oh my!
Thanks, Dorothy. Have fun in that 6x6 neck of the woods. In order to make the 6 grid tiles, I glued together 4 of the 3x3s squared up against my ruler. Note that all measurements, products, and now presumptions will be listed on the screen as they come up. I used PVA glue with dabs of high temperature hot glue for a stronger and faster bond, pushed down and against the ruler, because if your squares happen to not be complete squares, it's more important for them to line up straight on the outsides than the inside, since the inside can be covered up later. Optionally, I also used toothpicks to make the bond sturdier by snapping them in half and then shoving them in on an angle from the side, but the tiles will probably be just fine without this step. I do the magnets on these pieces too, and again, you can find instructions on how to do this through RP Archive. Rocky outcroppings are a great addition to any wilderness and an opportunity to use XPS foam offcuts. Here, I'm using 2 slabs of foam, cutting them on an angle, and then gluing them together to an approximate jutting rock cliff shape. Then, here's where the fun begins. Carving foam rocks is about improvised hacking, slashing, digging, and picking, so there's no real plan you can have going into it, but one recommendation I can make is that wherever you might make a slash on one side, connect it on the adjoining side to make it look like big rocky sections. I like to think I'm carving little streams through the rock that branch out and intersect. And if I coniferous an idea, make some parts really recessed, leave some parts sticking out, and leave some parts flat. Then, of course, we smash and bash and press. I just use rocks that I found around my neighborhood. The bumpier they are, the better. And don't be afraid to use the sharp edges either, even if it cracks the foam. To hide the seams between the 2 separate layers, I smooth some spackling paste or hole filler putty over the cracks and lines that I don't want to keep. And once you're happy with the overall look, we go to prime the whole thing in a Mod Podge black paint base coat. Once dry, I paint in a series of dry brush coats starting from black, then a dark gray, then a light gray tan mix, making sure my brush gets drier and drier with every stage. Don't take this for granted. Really make sure you use a big brush with almost no paint on it for the final highlights. It'll make a world of difference. For attaching, pick an arrangement you like and glue down. Then we can add our dirt Mod Podge mixture to make this rocky outcropping match thematically. Lay it on thick in the cracks and crawl it up some of the crevices for a natural transition from mud to rock. And don't forget to coat the sides too in just Mod Podge and paint. For laying out the grass, I follow the modular scheme from the wilderness video, except bigger. I treated the 4 sides as 8 sections and chose half of them to have grass at the edge and half to have dirt at the edge. Then connect the sections in between however you like. For the rocky cliff tile, I decided to try a half-half design. I did the summer grass, leaving small spaces for tufts and big flat spaces for trees. Then once dry, I added spots of green grass, and then the tufts, and then the dead leaves. The new bit of greenery I brought in is moss. Wherever you go to add moss, think of if it were to rain and where the rain would pool and drip down. Those are the best places to add this green flocking for atmosphere. Once everything is dry, seal in your work. I use a matte varnish spray, but I'm also quite delicate with handling my terrain. So if you want something stronger, there are plenty of YouTube tutorials with different sealant techniques. Now we'll leave this here and come back to add our trees in step 6. Building hills is the perfect opportunity to use up scraps of foam because what's underneath isn't really going to be seen. I shaved down some offcuts for hilly slopes and glued them into a hilly stack. Add as many foam lumps as you like, big or small or none at all. Some pieces can be rocky boulders and some can give the hill a softer shoulder. I really enjoyed language arts in high school along with math. It's no wonder I ended up here. Just remember to consider leaving some flat spots for my niece to stand. These hills are not just grass, so for some of the more vertical sections, I've done more rock carving. Then to integrate our lumps, we get to slather on spackle or hole filler putty. I use spackle here because it's in a tub, it's convenient, we're not going to sand, so it's not very messy. I have a plastic clay tool that I'm using to spread this, but you could use a popsicle stick or your finger. You'll likely need to leave your hill overnight. Don't base coat prematurely. When it is dry, base coat your intended rocks with black paint and Mod Podge, and then everything else in the mud mixture. Lay it on thick on the hill itself and apply normally toward the edges of the tile. Once dry, we can come back in and dry brush all the rocky surfaces like we did with the rocky cliff. Also, you can dry brush the pebbles and wood debris. I tried something different with the hill tile and added the tufts before adding all of the grass. Don't forget to identify where you might want to put trees, even if it's on the hill. Then have fun spreading the grass around section by section. You can go pretty ham with the grass and the moss. Follow all the same rules we've already covered and feel free to mix them into each other a little bit more. I also use moss to fully cover any vertical areas that I didn't carve as rock, and I added spots of moss throughout the grass to give Timverse of deep green. Seriously, look at any non-manicured lawn and it's like half moss. Now don't lose this train of thought, we'll come back to the hills for trees soon. I've already shown one way of doing deadfall, which is to take real small deadfall and make it fake big deadfall. You can get creative with this as well, like I did here by breaking this branch and gluing it like a fallen over tree. The other way you can do dead trees is to make them out of foam, hot glue, and paint. If you're stumped, there are a bunch of tutorials on YouTube that get to the root of this problem already. But the tips I'll give here are: use reference images. In fact, do this all the way through your terrain journey. It'll help with realism. Use a low temperature glue gun and do section by section at a time. The real juicy texture comes from lightly scraping the glue gun several times over the fully dried glue. Pile up a little bit of glue along the outer edge to look like the bark poking up. Integrate these lumps by running your glue gun down the bark texture and give little dabs along the top to give it a rougher appearance. Then paint. Similarly to our foam rocks, we do a coat of black and Mod Podge, then black, dark brown, brown, and tan paint in progressively drier dry brushes. Now my stump, I glued to the tile and then did the mud coat, but the log I wanted to be scatter terrain, so I tried something different. I added a little magnet at the bottom. You'll see why when we go. I found most model trees to be too short, too delicate, blocks play view, and then I realized I was just barking up the wrong tree. What I needed to create realistic, convenient, and playable trees was to get some real branches. Every single tree is a free branch I picked up on a walk or a hike. Now admittedly, I have a bandsaw, so I logged very little time cutting these down. But you can use a saw, after you sanitize the branches of course. These tree trunks are all 4 inches tall. Sand your cut if you like. And then finally, the magic. And it's RP Archive System, and it's been here the whole time. He developed this incredible system for scatter terrain that involves magnets. I've used it with these tree trunks by drilling into the bottom just enough for a 16th inch deep magnet to sit flush. I super glued it in place, but hot glue might do okay. Now this is why we picked flat spots on our tiles for our trees. Place a magnet in the approximate center of the spot you picked, and then put a magnet on the bottom, underneath, in the same spot. They should hold in place. Then trace around the magnet on the back. I have a round carving tool that I've masked off so I know how deep to dig. Then I slowly carve in, making the hole slightly bigger than the magnet. You want to dig almost all the way through, so dig carefully. Once you're done, you can drop an 1/8 inch deep magnet in the hole, which should be loose and wiggling around. Hold in place as you flip it over, and if you dug just right, the magnet from the bottom of the tree should attach and flip the magnet underneath the tile to the correct orientation. It's freaking genius, and I can't praise enough how awesome this system is. If you haven't done so already, check out the original video over at RP Archive. Matt over there has his tips to share, like using magnets on the top if you're nervous where to stop, like what I'm doing with this drill from the bottom of this hill. I told you I like language arts, and now living dangerously. Tell me what terrain you'd like to see for a future video occasion. And seriously, if you haven't seen the wilderness video or need a refresher on those tiles, then click here.